Two Indianapolis neighborhoods searching for a turnaround to decades of decline.
There are a lot of challenges here.
Searching for hope.
They're from broken homes or from not structured homes.
After a decade of investment by an unexpected benefactor, today there's been a fundamental change in the residents' lives.
My kids have a better sense of what you can do if you just take that first step.
Since the beginning, we've been following the progress of the Martindale, Brightwood, and Southeast neighborhoods. Tonight, a progress report. Changing neighborhoods, changing lives. The Making Connections story.
This program is made possible through the generous support of the Annie E. Casey Foundation, helping vulnerable kids and families succeed, and Central Indiana Community Foundation, transforming the lives of Central Indiana residents through powerful and effective philanthropy, leadership, and vision.
Let us pray. Gracious and most loving God, we give you honor, praise, and the glory this day for this day that you have made.
It's a beautiful day in the southeast neighborhood of Norwood.
It's quiet. I can go out on my porch at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. You don't hear no bucket noise or nothing. And everybody that goes by my house, they wave at me. Welcome to the neighborhood.
All are welcome today at the Norwood reunion. Neighbors old and new here to celebrate.
Most of us have moved out of Norwood, but we always come back, no matter what. We always come back.
I had a pretty good childhood. Me and my best friends, we used to come over here and play back here in the park and stuff.
During this past decade, there have been some remarkable changes here.
There's a lot of pride in the neighborhood. You can feel safe with your kids walking around in the neighborhood, you know.
I want to move back here because I know it's safer for my kids than where I'm at now.
Actually, I got one thing to say about Norwood is unity. Unity with love. And that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Norwood's resurgence is part of a bigger story. This story about two major Indianapolis neighborhoods and their significant benefactor.
Pick it up a notch!
In 1999, the Annie E. Casey Foundation came to Indianapolis looking for a place to test this theory.
Children succeed when their families are strong, and families are strong when they're in supportive communities.
Lamont Hulse is the executive director of the Annie E. Casey project.
I think largely that when Casey came to town, they had that and they wanted to figure out what would work on the ground with the people who lived there.
10 years ago, Hulse was an academic working to compile urban data, pivotal in the Casey Foundation's selection of Indianapolis Southeast neighborhoods and Martindale Brightwood.
They saw a community that was extremely frustrated, but was very united.
10 years ago, we were out here in neighborhoods doing drug marches, close out drug houses.
These were neighborhoods that had to deal with some significant crime and safety issues, a deteriorating housing stock, infrastructure, commercial district that began to disintegrate.
When you think back 10 years ago, we were still working on a strategic plan. We were still trying to get the people to come out to our town hall meetings and become engaged. We were still trying to work on the problems.
It was at times dangerous work done by plucky leaders who wanted better lives for the children.
We only thought as the goals of getting our kids through high school, getting them on into colleges, but we didn't really think about what steps we need to do along the way.
The Casey investment amounted to $20 million over 10 years in both neighborhoods. Goals were family-centered.
I think that was one of the main reasons why we were chosen, because we wanted to get our families back the way they were.
Annie Casey was the mother of Jim Casey, who's the founder of UPS.
In 1948, the Annie E. Casey Foundation was endowed with the mission of helping better the lives of children.
Children do well when their families do well. If the parents are not worried about how they're going to do stuff, then the kids are not so worried.
Words that rang true in these two culturally different communities, separated by just a few blocks.
Martindale Brightwood is one. This is a historically African-American community. There were places in Martindale Brightwood that were meant to serve black families. and then over time the development of some very important churches.
The Southeast neighborhood, often identified with Fountain Square, was also a powerful community, different in terms of ethnicity.
Since the early part of the 20th century, it's been a part of Indianapolis where a lot of people from Appalachia moved to. And then, of course, in the last few years, with some gentrification in Southeast, there are new people coming who are creative and bright and have a lot of education.
The Casey Initiative became known as Making Connections. Engaging residents and training them as leaders was key.
We always knew that making connections was not going to be forever, and so we tried to work very intentionally to develop capacities that other people could carry on. Try to get other people like Tom Sawyer, get other people to paint our fences, and then they'd keep painting them.
Some of the things they wished upon us in the beginning, we resisted, but we didn't resist the resident leadership facilitation.
Making Connections provided leadership training to more than 800 residents.
The pipeline is one of the things that sort of takes a lot of work and a lot of magic to figure out every day.
At least 100 more leaders attended advanced training at national conferences to see and talk to others who were solving similar problems.
I think that there have been enough folks who have been inspired, who have been motivated, who have learned things about themselves that they never knew before that they had.
Making Connections, what I've found is it's really about lifting people up, giving residents the power, giving people the power.
One of the most empowering ideas was something called a study circle.
Study circle is basically a small group discussion. It is a way to bring together people around a topic. This evening, what you're going to see is the topic is urban gardening.
There's just an amount of pride and history and just that's your roots.
We found that people really can kind of take it that next step and follow through, and we've seen some really exciting things happen because of it.
Making Connections provided resources, generally around $1,000, in order for neighbors to take that next step.
We've made some really big actions from really small groups and really, I think, impressed people.
Study circles also changed lives.
When Annie Casey first came, I had a job. It was kind of daddy, and I liked it, though. You know, I didn't think about it. I was making ends meet.
Attending a study circle opened Julie Barrett's eyes.
It's a confidence builder when you have the tools to make an impact on your own self-development, and then you can transfer that.
Eventually, she took a better job out of her comfort zone, and she stepped up to become a dynamic new leader in Martindale Brightwood.
They left us with the tools to empower and uplift our community in a respectful way. My kids have a better sense of what you can do if you just take that first step. So a lot of what we learn is how to get people to take that first step and celebrate it.
In 1999, both neighborhoods had some of the lowest graduation rates in the country. One of the first education initiatives involved early childhood education training of family, friends, and home providers of babies and toddlers.
There was some structured play. The kids were able to interact with each other, which is something that may not have happened in their own home. And there was also the opportunity to put information in front of the parents about how they could do some very simple things in their home to help kids learn and develop better.
Making Connections supported the mayor's decision to oversee charter schools, and the Sense Charter School in the Southeast neighborhood was one result.
The Sense School is intended to be a community school. And by that, it's not only the community coming into the school for services, but the school going out into the community to be involved and engaged.
Our goal is for them to be leaders of this neighborhood and not just get through 6th grade and then be done, but to really be invested in where they live.
Martindale Brightwood's residents had a different problem.
When Casey first came to Martindale Brightwood, the first thing they heard from leaders in this community is, we want a school back in our community. And it would be a community school.
IPS School 51 is such a place.
It is not just about us meeting the academic needs of the students, but it's also meeting some of the other social needs of the community.
Here, education does not end at 3 p.m.
Kids are able to get glasses, kids are able to get health care, kids are able to have quality after-school experience, and at the same time, families are able to get parenting education. They're able to start to access employment training and computer training and connect to the community at large.
Some of what happens is we build relationship with parents first before we don't say, hi, nice to meet you, here's a program. We have relationship with parents first. And once we have this safe space that's created here at the school, dialogue begins.
One program desperately needed here is the food bank.
On Fridays, our chronically hungry students take home this small bag of groceries.
Poverty hits children hardest, but the community school fills some of the voids.
When there's lots of opportunities and a rich learning environment, a place where parents are engaged in their learning, it inspires lifelong learning on the parts of the children and their parents.
Making Connections helped develop the now nationally recognized George Washington Community High School. Today, more children are reading proficiently in 3rd grade, and those high school graduation rates are climbing.
I told her to promise me she don't cry Saturday.
She will. She will.
Steve Hall is leaving home tomorrow for college. He came to Rachel Cooper's Neighborhood Center as a young boy and ended up graduating 3rd in his high school class.
Being involved in the neighborhood, it was like a spark of motivation to be different from everyone else.
Children benefit when their family's financial health improves.
People need jobs. People need jobs so they can have income, so they can support their families, so their children can succeed. And the Center for Working Families is another theory that Casey brought in.
Here, long-term relationships are built around job training, financial literacy, and resume building. As a job counselor, Julie Barrett helps people build skills and connect with better jobs.
We want to lift up people. So if you're not working, we want to try to get you a job, or if you need more skills or you need GED, we want to encourage you to go back and get that so that you can get more money in your household.
We help people find a job or get a better job. We believe that any job is a good job, so we call it the ABCs. So any job, a better job, a career.
This is kind of flipping it to being family-centered and saying, what is it that you need to be successful as a family? We're going to go out and bundle those services and come up with those services for you. And I think that's really needs to be a 21st century trend for all not-for-profit sectors, is to be client-centered.
By 2008, over 700 people had been placed in better jobs with benefits. What's more, the centers help the growing numbers of men and women returning from prison find work in the community.
There's about 40 different centers now in several different American cities. So this model is being replicated nationally, and a lot of attention paid to how this is done. The specifics matter, how you do this.
Making Connections also help thousands of families get free tax preparation services and take advantage of the Earned Income Tax Credit.
If you have children, and primarily if you're low income, moderately income even, you get a tax credit just for earning money. So if you've worked at all and you have children, you can get a tax credit that is substantial.
In 10 years, over $1.3 million has been returned to families.
And now that's evolved into a Bank on Indy campaign, trying to work with people to reestablish credit and to learn how to use financial institutions as a way to build their own financial strengths in the community.
I think the successes that we've had with many of our neighbors is that they keep coming back. If you keep coming back, you know, that's kind of the key.
Economically, Martindale Brightwood's small business community still struggles today. An empty corner is all that is left after a devastating fire destroyed the historic old theater which had housed Blewitts Funeral Home. Today, the corner hardware is even closed.
I feel pretty good until I drive through Andrew J. Brown and go through my old neighborhood and see how it's just sitting there like the beginning of history. Dead. Dead. There's one block where there's 2 people living in that entire block. Empty.
Some wonder how long before the city condemns abandoned and dilapidated housing stock here, paving the way for change.
Well, that's the new cry. 10 minutes downtown, move back into the city. And it's okay if you move back in the city, but don't kick me out. Don't let my neighborhood be blighted like it's doing now. But that's the first thing they do when they want your neighborhood. They let the neighborhood become blighted.
Neighborhoods do change. At least now, Martindale Brightwood residents have better skills to meet future challenges.
It does not make sense to me. But Annie Casey had given us the tools, and those of us who are using the tools are doing well with what they're doing.
By contrast, housing stock in the Indianapolis Southeast neighborhoods is improving, and the economy is thriving. Fountain Square, in the heart of the Southeast, provides an affordable place for artists with popular Indianapolis events such as Masterpiece in a Day. Access to the Southeast and Martindale Brightwood neighborhoods has never been easier thanks to the Cultural Trail, which now connects those neighborhoods to the Monon Trail and the downtown community.
What I think is fascinating is it's only a mile from the mall down here, but you would think it's a lot further.
Now, the Central Indiana Community Foundation has identified Martindale Brightwood as the next inspiring place we want to have happen.
One of Martindale Brightwood's crowning achievements was once a buried topic.
There were factories in that community for over a century, including a major lead smelter, which was spitting lead out in the air and actually blew up a couple of times. So a few years ago, somebody tested the ground and found very, very heavy lead content.
The story of Martindale Brightwood's Environmental Justice Collaborative is profound, and it all started with a study circle.
Give me an A. A is for ask God to help us.
When the people got together and talked about what they wanted to talk about the environmental challenges in their community and what do we do about it. Growing out of the study circle was formed eventually the Martindale Brightwood Environmental Justice Collaborative, which has been a powerful group that has pushed the city, the federal government, private contractors, the businesses in the community to be responsible for making that community a safe and healthy place for people to live in.
One of the results of that has been the EPA stepping in and now really supporting the Smart Growth District investment on a national level, and I think you've seen some really creative educational things going on there.
Today, condemned land and abandoned industrial sites are cleaner. Once contaminated groundwater, safer. The measure of success for the Casey investment lies in the future actions of galvanized residents.
I'm a resident in the neighborhood. Only been around 12 years or so I'm not from here, but I came as soon as I heard about it.
In the Southeast community, neighbors formed a Congress which meets quarterly.
The Southeast Neighborhood Congress is the way that our neighborhood alters, improves, advances its quality of life plan. And Making Connections helped us to form that quality of life plan.
Both communities have quality of life plans, and the question is, once that plan is done, how do you keep it moving and how do you monitor that it's doing what you're doing?
The Southeast Community Congress is how neighbors plan to make sure that their quality of life plan is a living document, important to the neighborhood for years to come.
The Congress is not a place where decisions are made or problems are solved. It is where people vote on an issue, and if they want to work on it, there's a group that gets together and they go work on it.
This night, neighbors have voted to form a study group to focus on improving education.
So I would like to ask that you consider adding a task force to your quality of life plan so that we could create some action plans for those around the education goals that you might add.
People who've been through our leadership process are up there leading the meeting from the front or sometimes from the floor. They're talking about how to engage with the Center for Working Families in Southeast and how to do business development in Southeast. And it's like I'm a grandparent going to a family reunion, and all my grandkids are there. And I didn't have anything directly with doing what they're doing that night, but if it hadn't been for us, they wouldn't have been doing it at all.
Who's the experts? It's the people on the ground who are doing the work every day, or in this case, living in that neighborhood every day. They know that neighborhood better than anybody else. They know the assets, they know the traditions, they know the challenges. They know which relationships might hurt the neighborhood and which ones might help it. We need all that expertise and passion and knowledge at the table. And so it's really about doing it in partnership.
The story of Hazel Hart Hendricks School 37 illustrates how forging community partnerships may be Casey's biggest legacy. In Martindale, Brightwood, School 37 is historic, one of the first African-American schools in the city. So when IPS decided to close it, it was a heartache to the community.
They tried to petition for the school to close, and I think that was the saddest time.
Neighbors gathered today in what was the old gymnasium to celebrate what became a plan to save the building through a partnership with the Central Indiana Community Foundation.
What happened was that the IPS transferred title to this building to the city, and then the city leased it to the Central Indiana Community Foundation, and the Central Indiana Community Foundation agreed to take operational control of the building, raise the money to renovate the building, turn it into a community center, create a sustainable business model, and ultimately the plan is, when all of that is done, which will take a little while, turn it back to the communities.
The fact that it was able to be brought back, and to be brought back not as a school, but as a community center, and we can forever remember its history, makes it even better.
All this impossible 10 years ago. A reality today, thanks to the training of neighborhood leaders by Making Connections.
Among the most powerful stories, among the most powerful connections Making Connections has made in the last years, has been the connections we've made between resident leaders and their own capacity to lead their communities.
This building is a we can do it thing. You know, environmental justice is a we can do it thing. Trying to have families in our community schools, even as our public education system is going through some changes, is I can do it thing. You know, having partners with influence to come and listen to it is I can do it thing.
When Casey officially leaves these Indianapolis neighborhoods, there will still be problems in need of solutions.
The relationship with Annie Casey hasn't always been easy, but even when it's been tough, I think it's been an opportunity for us to learn as neighbors how to be assertive and how to be clear about what's important to us. And so even in pushing back, I think we've learned to be a stronger neighborhood.
Making Connections, as much as we had our own strength, they were our support to keep us going.
One thing we've learned is when the Annie Casey Foundation brings theory to town, we can look at the theory, and if it makes sense for us, how do we translate that into practice? And that perhaps is not a science, but it certainly is a craft.
A craft indeed, one that has changed lives and in turn to communities.
I definitely would say the neighborhood's better. I would say we've went 98.6 improvement, but there's always that improvement that needs to go. We do have communication. We do have our kids graduating. We have a beautiful neighborhood. Trash is not as bad as it used to be. Communication is wonderful in the last 10 years. So we've grown from that. Yes, I do. I think the neighborhood's a lot better.
I want people in Indianapolis and people in other places to say, well, there's something that did some good work and had some results for kids and families. We can do that too.
I think the best legacy is the philosophy that the solutions are in the community. I really do. I don't think people intuitively go to that approach. And I think that that prowess was built through Making Connections.
The community center has gotten more involved. I think the neighbors have certainly gotten more involved, many of them. And that can be directly attributed to Making Connections.
And I see the vision of it being a beautiful, clean neighborhood with flowers and trees, and all the houses either fixed up or either painted where they look like they're fixed up or something. I see that, and it will happen. It will happen.
When you get to a certain age, you start being impatient. I want it now. You know how that is. But I'm sure that the young people that I have met, both black and white, they will carry on. But I'm just impatient because I'm 75. And I want to see some of these good things happening before I leave here.
I have been taken to school by residents who really know what they're talking about because they've allowed me to come into their communities and serve them. It's difficult for me to express what that's meant for me. This work is a ministry now.
These tools that they gave me to say, you know, enough is enough. I don't have to keep this pathway going. I can change my life if I just make a move. And I didn't know what was going to happen on the other side, but I did it. And then when people, then the residents, the neighborhood, they helped me do it.
Here, making connections made connections. And for children and families in these two Indianapolis neighborhoods, life is full of promise.
It's been a powerful piece of change that I think is going to endure for a while.
This program is made possible through the generous support of the Annie E. Casey Foundation, helping vulnerable kids and families succeed, and Central Indiana Community Foundation, transforming the lives of Central Indiana residents through powerful and effective philanthropy, leadership, and vision.